and boom, everything changed.
So you consider Armenians to be hardworking?
They always find ways to do it easier and smarter. A lot of companies would hire professionals. They can do the job perfectly, but they are not like remote enabled. Some people from some cultures believe that their culture is superior. Making sure that people can communicate in a remote setting is the hardest challenge.
Still 100% remote is a challenge.
Just assigning them tasks and paying them more than they can get, for example, from the local market doesn't work.
Because if the payment is the only motivation you are keeping your employees, they will surely leave. Yeah.
The international market is great, but the competition is also international. I would love to bring more remote workers from different countries to be working from Armenia.
Warm regards, everyone. I'm happy that we are coming back with another episode of our HR podcast. Today, my guest is Mathew Zein. Mathew has been living in Armenia since 2018. He is the chief editor and founder at Life in Armenia magazine, and he is also a senior content writer. Mathew, hi. First of all, thank you very much for accepting my invitation and being here. How are you?
Hi, thank you. I'm doing good. Thanks for the invitation and for this nice setting.
Sure, our pleasure. My first question, though it's not very connected to HR, but I'm very, very interested. What are you doing here in Armenia?
So in 2018, before 2018, my wife and I were digital nomads. So we have traveled the world working remotely from the Middle East to the Far East, different countries. Mm-hmm. And before Armenia, we were in China. And we wanted to start a family, so we were thinking about, a smaller country, someplace where we can settle down. We thought about going to the Emirates, but we tried the Emirates, the outdoor setting, we are outdoor people. We can't work indoors with AC all the time. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to go somewhere else. So the plan was Canada. And we just wanted to spend a week in Armenia for a vacation. There was a lot of tourism packages back then. Mm-hmm. We arrived in April 2018. For a week.
2018?
Yes.
Okay.
That was only, the plan was 1 week in here. We knew nothing about the country. Absolutely nothing.
Wow.
And we arrive here. On day one, my wife says, I'm in love with the place. Can we stay? So I checked the taxes. I checked everything. It was, amazing back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's still very reasonable now, but not as it used to be. Uh-huh. And I said, yeah, let's do it. We stayed for 1 year. Back then, we thought it's only going to be 1 year. Uh-huh. So 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 8, a kid. And next year, our kid goes to kindergarten for the first time. So that's another 10 years in Armenia, probably.
Wow. So until now, you are living in Armenia. Do you live in Yerevan, by the way?
Yes,
I live in Yerevan.
Okay. When I first arrived, by the way, I met a gentleman. He's Armenian American. Uh-huh. I met him at Ani Plaza. And he said, I have never left these 10 streets for the past 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at him, he's 80 years old, and I'm thinking, why wouldn't you leave 10 streets? Why would you live only in those, in this small circle? Now, 8 years living in Yerevan, I have never left those 8 streets. I'm only going probably sometimes, some tourism, another place or another country just for a week or so. Mm. But I'm living in that small circle that he described.
But you need to give chance to our cities as well.
Of course, I've been to a lot of Armenian places. Mm-hmm. But I mean, your daily life, your daily routine.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's that, poker can throw, as it's called in here.
Yeah, the scale is small here. So that's why when you are going, outside big cities, they are kind of weird for us.
It brings me back to Armenia. This year, we tried going back and forth, on some, contracts, but it didn't work out. We decided to stay.
Very interesting and very motivating. As an Armenian, very motivating to listen to your story. And another question which was quite interesting on your profile, because I've done some research on you, is that you switched from engineering, from tech to content creation. Yeah. Can we tell to marketing? Because it's.
I wouldn't say marketing because I didn't study marketing, but content creation, yes.
Exactly, content creation.
So I graduated as a software engineer in information technology engineering. That's my degree, but I've never worked as an engineer. Since graduation, I wanted to do something that's more interactive, to talk to people, I cannot just work behind a laptop all the time as a coder or something.
Yeah, a people-to-people profession.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I started writing about the tech industry. I understand the industry, and that was 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I understand the industry. Back then, there was no social media. We were just writing for forums or stuff like that, or some website copies. And it became a profession on its own. So, for example, I was doing it for free in the beginning, just for friends or for passion. And,
As a
people
hobby.
started, like offering, like, would you like to do it for money? Like, yes, of course. Can you do our website? Can you do this for us? And I started developing a career in this path. And later I took, let's say, more centered approach on journalistic writing, which is interviewing people to get content to write about a topic. So that's what I do now. So I got my degree in English linguistics, and now I'm studying journalism, internet journalism.
And you have your own how is that called, company or newsletter, Life in Armenia?
Yes. So Life in Armenia is a magazine, regular magazine that looks like the old style magazines in a PDF file. I started it in 2022 December. It's already 22 issues. And we have 17,000 readers, mostly coming from the US, interested in relocating to Armenia or doing business with Armenia.
Do you have these stats, or a majority of them are Armenians or international?
The readers?
Yeah.
It's all coming from the US, mostly from the US.
And in the US, Armenians in the US, or?
I would say 70% yes, 30% like foreigners.
Non-Armenians.
But within the past 2 years, a lot of couples relocated to Armenia influenced by the magazine.
Wow.
So we meet them here. First, they read the stories of life in Armenia. Then they come here, they become the story. We write about them. And they inspire others also to come to Armenia.
Wow, that's
We're
great.
talking about Americans, we're talking about Filipinos, French people, British people, different countries, non-Armenians. They're now living here. Like, sometimes I come across someone on the street, they're like, "Hey, Matthew,
I know
how are you
you
doing?"
are,
I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah, the magazine brought you here."
Yeah, that's so motivating. I will make sure to leave it in the comments so that our audience has a chance to read it as well. Our podcast main partner is Magnus HR, which is an HR and recruitment agency helping businesses worldwide in building and developing their teams. If you are a founder or manager at any department, Magnus HR can help you with conducting HR audit or reviewing your current HR processes or even setting them up from scratch. We are also here to help you find, recruit, and hire the best talent for your hard-to-fill or specific open vacancies. If you are an HR professional or plan to build career in this field, Magnus is here to help with your development by providing personalized consultancy and also an educational platform, HR EduHub. You can follow us and ask your questions on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. All of the links can be found in the description section. Matthew, this is an HR podcast, but I'm going to invite various professionals from different fields as you, bright minds, to share their experiences, to share their expertise and knowledge. And I think today we can speak about remote work environment and also very important topic, communication in remote teams, and also a little bit about cultural integration here in Armenia and some specifications. Yesterday during our chit chat, you told that you're very positive about working in Armenia. So please, can you start sharing this experience?
In 2020, I started working with Armenian clients from the tech industry. And boom, everything changed. First of all, I thought like, maybe there's no market in here. Maybe there's no demand. Maybe I will not get the same rate that I would ask for. It was all the opposite. The demand is great. Payment is good. Working with Armenian clients has been great experience. We're talking about companies on the same international level as any other country. And everything changed for me because that's when I started having a community. I started meeting people, and you know how it happens in Armenia, like you work with people, next morning they invite you to barbecues. So we had friends, like we were going out with friends, we were visiting people at their apartments, and
then you get referrals.
Exactly.
Friends of friends.
And now I would say 60% of my clients are Armenians, 40% like still diversified. But when I have the option, I would choose working with an Armenian company.
Why so?
It's the same level of professionalism, but you get to meet people in person and talk to them. And this kind of, friendship you can build with them is amazing.
Yeah,
so
this non-formal working environment as well. Okay, any other specifications you have noticed working with Armenian people, how we are different from others?
So I would say you have your own mindset sometimes that some other people might not understand from the beginning. So for example, in some countries, people would like to start working at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. In Armenia, people like to start at 10:30. Sometimes even from 10:30 until 11, there's like the cigarette and coffee. But when they start at 11, they might not end until 11 p.m. They don't leave at 5.
Committed.
Exactly. So it's a cultural thing. They might start a little bit later, but they are committed. So they will even put their own hours, their personal hours, to make sure that the work is done on time. and they will finish even like 1 a.m. if it takes them to do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's a cultural thing that I noticed in here, and it's good. It's nice to see that people are committed this way.
I remember myself being in Vienna. My brother lives there, so I'm traveling quite often over there. And also now, during the previous year, we have managed to have some clients from Vienna as well. And imagine my surprise. I was coming from the airport to my brother's house. It was 6 a.m., I guess. And it was the first time I was there. And imagine my surprise when I see lots of people over there drinking coffee, working, very active. No one is sleepy. In Armenia, if you go out at 6 a.m., I think
no restaurant is open.
No restaurant is open. Maybe
open.
some people running over there in some areas, in some gardens, but overall it was quite different for me.
The commitment is nice in here. You can see that commitment. It's not laziness, by the way. It's just a mindset, a culture, a way of doing things differently.
Yeah. So you consider Armenians to be hardworking?
Yes.
Yeah, and committed
and problem
and dedicated.
solvers, by the way.
Problem solvers.
Yeah, I've worked with an American company. So the founder of that company hires Armenians for operations and hires from 2 other countries only. It's the Philippines and South Africa. And after 3 years, we got in a conversation like, why do you hire Armenians? He had almost like 30 team members in here. And he says, by the way, he's American, non-Armenian, has nothing to do with Armenia. If you ask him where is Armenia on the map, he doesn't know.
But he's hiring Armenians.
30 Armenians already.
Wow.
And it's in the real estate business, by the way, for Washington. And when I asked why, he says we always do these cognitive tests for people and they always score high. And whenever you give them something, they don't like follow the rules. They always find ways to do it easier and smarter. And that's why he kept them for the operations department. He says, I ask them to do something. If there's another way, they will just find it and they will let me know about it. And we will improve our own, let's say, like processes, our internal processes based on their feedback. So that's one thing. Problem solving is something good. A lot of people will just follow the rules. In here, no. They try to find ways to make it easier, to make it
not getting
faster.
stuck with problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, we have spoken quite enough about the positive traits of working here. Now let's speak about, I would not say negative traits because everything is solvable in the working environment, but what kind of challenges you have faced. Maybe you can tell not only about Armenia, but generally what kind of challenges you see when working in international teams remotely.
You know, this is in Armenia and outside Armenia, not just in here.
Yeah.
A lot of companies would hire professionals. They can do the job perfectly, but they are not like remote enabled. So they haven't worked remotely before. They know how to do things if you put them in an office. But once you ask them to collaborate remotely with a team, they miss that like knowledge. They don't know how to do it. So companies assume that, we will just hire you, you can start working next day. It doesn't happen that way. And eventually they become frustrated, like, we hired someone, he's really good, his resume is amazing, or her resume is amazing, but they didn't work out. Why? Because they're not remote work enabled. They don't know how to work remotely, how to collaborate, how to manage their time, how to manage their communication. And that's a big problem. At least before hiring someone, you must make sure that either you do it, you teach them how to be remote enabled, or you hire them with a remote enabled like experience. So that's one thing that's always a problem with like working with different teams remotely. A lot of people join our teams like with different companies, but they haven't worked remotely before.
I think that was like new for everyone. I usually tell that HR, human resources management, and generally management, it has kind of, the history has 2 parts, very generically telling, but until COVID and after COVID, because what COVID did, we kind of lived 5 years of life, but very snoozed in 5-6 months. And after that, there is huge responsibility on the shoulders of HR to create these remote work environments, to create guidelines, mentorship programs, support programs for employees. So whenever you are telling me people are not remote enabled, right? Yep. Quite a good term, by the way. I think that majority of the responsibility here is on HR as well, how they teach, how they help employers to get into this remote
maybe
work
some like
environment.
live training or some simple PDF file,
Some
just
onboarding.
explaining how you can, for example, become part of our team remotely, not just become part of our team. Usually they do the onboarding without the remote part, and the remote part is the most important in this case.
Yeah, it's changing too fast, but still we need to do that. Yeah, totally sharing your point. Okay, any other challenges that comes to your mind in this environment?
Cultural things. I mean, again, if you're working remotely with international teams, it's the cultural aspect. In a lot of cases, some people from some cultures believe that their culture is superior. So others have to adapt to that culture.
Especially when the majority of the team is from that culture, then
exactly.
It's,
And that's a problem because when you hire someone from a different country, for example, let us say a team in the US is working with someone, I don't know, in Armenia or Georgia or any other country. They would assume that their culture has to be the dominant one. Meanwhile, this isn't always the case. Now we're not talking about the work processes. Work is work. Processes are the same. But sometimes you have to learn from other people.
There's always room for improvement, and other people sitting nearby is the best source of learning how to do things.
And that's also HR's job, by the way. The way I see it, that when there are multiple people from different countries, the HR should be responsible for introducing them to each other in a way that, we have people from this country, we have people from this country. Just some cultural nonsenses between the two of them, just to make sure that they understand each other. Without any of those, cultural, let's call it, miscommunication or misunderstanding between people.
Cultural errors, I would say. Right before this podcast, I was having another discussion with Mr. Chalabian. He's my professor from American University, and we were discussing that HR is not only the job of HR, HR toolkit should be used by management as well. So whenever we have discussed today here, I think it should be shared between management and human resources management professionals to be able to enable people work together. And yes, culture is like a huge part of this work to be done. We are speaking about culture, and there is huge stereotype, and much of the recruitment errors are here as well, that people think of culture as similarity, as hiring the same people. What are your thoughts about that? What is culture?
I wouldn't say hiring the same people because there's no way you can have the same people all in one place.
Even if you try hard, right?
It will be different people with different cultures and different way of thinking. And the hardest part is making them collaborate. And it becomes harder when they have to collaborate on a platform, for example, like Asana or like Monday.com.
Or project management tools.
So that's the hardest because you're only communicating in words and they don't see you all the time. Like when we meet each other, if I'm going to tell you something, my facial expressions, my emotions, you can feel them. So you can tell, for example, if I'm angry or not. Meanwhile, if I would just send an email, a very dry email, you might get the wrong expression from it. You might think that, okay, so why is he angry? Meanwhile, I might not be angry. Maybe I'm just busy. So I would just send a few words.
In a strict way, it sounds like that.
So making sure that people can communicate in a remote setting is the hardest challenge.
After the COVID, most of the companies, they went remote, and then the productivity suffered, and then they started come back to the office. But still, I don't think it will be the same as...
It will never be the same, by the way.
Yeah, it really changed.
There is a reason why a lot of, right now there are movements trying to bring people back to the offices, because you're talking about an industry with trillions, it's billions of dollars, if not, let's say trillion, the office rental industry. Because all the tech companies, they rent offices, they don't buy them. The reason they rent, so that you can increase your expenses. But when you don't have anyone renting offices, it means everyone is working remotely. When everyone is working remotely, there is an industry losing billions of dollars. So what do?
You bring back them?
You bring them back to the office, you promote that. I mean, I wouldn't say that remote work is the perfect environment for everyone, but it's good in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's good, but having only remote teams, actually, it proved to be non-productive on 100%, especially for the companies who were not remote from day one. So statistically, the productivity suffered. That's why there are new trends now. Another trend, hybrid ones,
hybrid is nice.
An asynchronous one. When in this asynchronous environment, I don't know. Do you know about it? By the way, this is new. It started from GitHub, as far as I remember, the company who initiated this wave. It means that in a remote environment, you don't have any hours of starting your work or any reply time for your team members. It's actually 100% result based, and the idea is giving ownership to the employees. So now everything is around that, but still 100% remote is a challenge. Though we are, how many years we are in that? 4 years, I guess.
I've met a lot of people, even like with a lot of more experience, like 20 years remotely or 25 years remotely, and that blows my mind. Like they have been working remotely even before I knew how to use a computer, so that's crazy.
But still it proves to be productive at some cases. For some companies or for some fields, maybe it works.
Maybe startups these days, when they start remotely from the beginning, it's easier for them to collaborate
and
if they use the right tools.
Okay, we have spoken a lot about communication because you are really experienced here with working with international teams in different countries. You have mentioned that you were traveling with your wife. What are some successors of communication as for you to be able to be productive in a communication and to be able to find mutual grounds with teams?
I would say like whenever I'm working with a company, I would try like first to meet people, at least get 10 minutes of, like just a call with the ones I'm going to work with, even outside working hours. Like, can we just hop on a call for like 10 minutes? I would like to meet you. And when you get to know people on a personal level, like with a joke or just a short chat just about their personal lives, it breaks that, ice between the two of you, and it makes it easier to communicate. So whenever so usually I join teams. Like, for example, there's a marketing team. They already know each other. They're working on a campaign from different countries. They have this
chemistry with each other.
I'm just hired to do something there in the team. So I would pick the people I'm going to work with, and I ask them just for a short call. Sometimes like as a group call or individual ones, like one-on-one. And, just be myself and try to ask them about like, so do you have kids? We talk about kids if they do. Do you live in a cold place? It's, for example, like this cold now in Armenia. It breaks that silence and it makes it easy to communicate with people later. So I would say trying just to break free.
Sync with them.
Imagine that you're in an office. You're preparing your coffee, someone's standing next to you. You would ask these questions. That's how I would do it.
That's why I think lots of psychological issues started when people went remote only after working in the offices, because
it was a shock.
Because we need these social interactions. It's part of us, and
back then they were not even going outside the home, so they were not communicating with anyone else, and that was another problem, because now when you work remotely, you still go outside, you have your friends, you
communicate,
Exactly.
and still you have, maybe for some companies, have this option to go in and work from the company as well. What else about communication, some productivity hacks in international and remote teams?
I will mention something not from my end, something I got from others.
Okay.
So in 2021, I worked on an article called Opening Back Offices in Armenia. And for that article...
When was that, sorry?
2021.
2021.
Yes, for that article I interviewed 100 CEOs from around the world who opened back offices in Armenia. And I asked them about that experience. Like, why would you open a back office in Armenia? How was the communication with the team members? What can you tell me about it? And by the way, the article, because of it had a lot of, let's say, valuable information, it ranked on top of search results in its respective category within 3 months.
Wow.
And it still ranks at the top.
Wow.
What I got from them is everyone told me the same. And this is something they said about hiring Armenians, but I believe it's also outside Armenia. It applies the same. When you try to treat your remote workers, your people like hiring from another country, as second-level employees, even if you're paying them a lot of money, it doesn't work. You have to communicate with them as they are working with you at the same office. You have to engage them in making decisions. You have to ask them about, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Just assigning them tasks and paying them more than they can get, for example, from the local market, doesn't work. Everyone told me the same thing. People were quitting. They were getting offered like a lot more than they can get anywhere here. Still, they were quitting. They wanted to be engaged. Meanwhile, the companies who engaged those employees on the same level, they treated them like their peers, because you're hiring professionals, so why would you not engage them in everything else? When they were engaging them, talking to them, asking them, they treated them similarly to your office team. It worked well. They did a lot more work than they were asked to do, and everyone was happy. And it was not a payment issue. Again, when they paid them but didn't engage them, people were leaving.
Yeah, because there is always anyone who's paying more if the
Not about the payment.
Yeah, because if the payment is the only motivation you are keeping your employees, they will surely leave. Yeah, I'm usually telling that because there is this stereotypical thinking from managers. I would not say only in Armenia, but generally globally, there is this issue when managers are telling, what's the matter? We can pay them more and they would stay. And I say no.
They wouldn't.
Yeah, payment only, compensation alone, it cannot stay as a motivation.
It might work in the first year, for example, but then they will leave.
Yeah, because people are coming after ownership. Yeah.
I worked with the founder, by the way, who had this, let's say, concept of meeting his team on something called life planning. So he would meet you and talk about your plans for the next 5 years to make sure that you're happy. However, he didn't do it with the remote team. He only did it with his team at the office, thinking that remote team members don't need that because he's paying them well. Eventually, everyone on the remote team sent him emails separately, saying like, I would like to be included in this. Why am I not included?
I thought they left and this was just a painful lesson
for him. They had
him.
like a good communication with him and they said, we would like to have the same thing. Why would you only discuss like the future plans with your office team? We are also a remote team, but we are committed to your company. So it's always about talking to people, communicating with them, treating them as office team members.
Regarding this, I remember Ray Dalio's example. He is like very famous American investor. I very suggest to read his book Principles, quite famous one, and there he's bringing an idea that at the beginning of starting his hedge fund, he rented a house and he was living in this house and working in this house with his employees, and then from then he started these transparency sessions. The idea is to bring radical transparency into company so that everyone is opening to share feedback, everyone is opening to criticizing each other on the mistakes, on the challenges they are facing. And actually he made this as a cornerstone of his company, this transparency, this openness, and this as a result brought taking responsibility and ownership. A good example of ownership is Google ones. Do you know about that? The rule of 20% or 10% they have is that employees, anyone at Google, they have this chance of using their 10% of their time or 20% of their time on whatever they want out of their job. And the idea here is do something good for Google. And as far as I remember, they've created Google Maps as a result of this, because some of the employees
Gmail, I believe.
Gmail?
Yeah, Gmail was the one that was created like in...
during the free
time.
During the free time. Then Gmail, yeah. So taking ownership is really the cornerstone of all successful companies, I think, in the world. Yep. Anything else you can recall as a success factor of good communication and collaboration in these international teams?
I would say there is something I like about some teams when they... Even during the onboarding sessions, they will tell you to relax. Like I remember on one of the onboardings, probably around 6 months ago, the HR who was talking to me said, we don't mind if your kid is crying in the background. We don't mind if your dog is barking. It's fine because we're human too. And we know that there's going to be noise around you. You know that you're working from home. We are also working from home, and that's fine. So don't try to, stress yourself. Don't try to be in an isolated setting. That is fine. We're all humans and we're working. And we all have our life happening around us. Because back then my kid was crying and I was just like,
you were
give
tense.
me 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. And she said, leave him. That's fine. And he even joined us on the call. So that way of, very human interaction was really nice, because when she said that, I even became better talking. I was able to talk a lot and my whole communication was different. Meanwhile, I was just thinking about my kid in the beginning. Like, I need him to be silent. I don't want them to hear him. But why?
Yeah.
She said, that's fine.
And then your talk and productivity, your talk suffers because you're kind of... So bringing this human-to-human natural interaction into your collaboration. Yeah, especially in big companies, bureaucracy and formality, they are playing huge roles. Yeah. And
sometimes it kills your productivity. Like, you feel that you have to be wearing something. You feel that you have to be like in specific shape. But no, you can just be whoever you are. You're just working. They care about the results. and you care about doing the job and getting paid, so why not?
I've just remembered your example when you told that today you are working with Armenian teams and the other day you are having this Horovats together. So speaking about these customs and traditions, what do you think? Are they playing crucial role in collaboration, and can you share your experience within Armenia or maybe with international teams as well?
I mean, with international teams nowadays, they try to do this similarly because they have these like 1 week break for everyone. So they invite everyone to somewhere, for example, in the Canary Islands, and all the team like comes from different parts of the world. It's almost the same thing. So they do barbecues there. They try to like dance, play some games and stuff like that. And sometimes even work remotely together from the same villa. Now in Armenia, it happens differently because you work with people after, like for example, a couple of meetings or after a couple of projects, someone says, we're having a barbecue this weekend. Would you like to join us with your family? I'm like, yeah, of course. It's the same thing. It's happening. It does the same impact, by the way, because you get to meet them personally. You like them. You get to meet their families. You laugh. It's not just about work anymore. So it's those similar retreats, but it's happening on, let's say, on a smaller scale in here.
So Armenians are doing that like on cultural, intuitive level, and it 100% works. Okay. And let's speak about challenges over here, because recently we have lots of relocations to Armenia because all of the political stuff happening. And what kind of challenges you are facing, because majority of our auditorium will be HR professionals. I'm sure they would be interested to hear about this.
To be honest, challenges myself I haven't faced, but one thing I noticed like recently, let's say within the past 2 years, I receive a lot of messages saying, like, for example, hello, can you find me a job? Hello, can you find me a job remotely?
Okay.
A lot of people think that it's like that. You can just find a job remotely and you can start working. Meanwhile, it's different. Like, again, working remotely means you have to prepare yourself for working remotely. You must have all like the portfolio, you must have the experience, you must at least educate yourself about it. So that's one thing I noticed since a lot of people moved. Everyone wants to join remote work because the market is not too big at that moment. Like there is, let's say, some market demand, but then it was all filled up, and I believe it was filled. But then again, you have a lot of people looking for jobs, and the international market is great, but the competition is also international. So you're not just competing with, for example, I don't know, thousands. You're competing with millions. But yeah, I would say
the scale is different over there. So the point is you need to act seriously as if you are looking for a job
of course,
locally.
it takes months. It doesn't take weeks, and you have to be serious about it. You have to invest your time looking for a job. It's not just, I applied, for example, for 5 different jobs. You have to apply for tens or maybe hundreds. This is a very competitive market out there, and you have to keep trying. You have to use the marketplaces. You have to have a strategy for that. I mean, I'm sure you know about that even better than I do from your HR perspective, but it's not just about applying and it will happen and people will select me.
It's not a magic, you need to work. Actually, I was thinking today that commitment in everything is a key. Even if you are doing super great thing, if you are not committed to what you are doing, it will suffer. It takes time.
When we started the magazine, by the way, Life in Armenia, so everyone said, who's going to be interested in reading about digital nomadism in Armenia in English? So first issue, when I look at it, it was a joke. It wasn't anything close to what we have right now, like 2 years ago. It was very simple. It was, I would say, very naive. But I'm happy about it because someone told me, if you believe it was naive and simple, it means you have developed so much. And that means you're on the right way. So, like, first issue, no readers. Second issue, for example, a few hundreds. 1,000, 5,000, then we started growing in thousands. Now we grow 2,000 readers every month.
That's huge.
That's commitment. That's
and
because we keep
magazine,
doing that.
Because people now prefer other types of the content, right?
And we don't have videos, by the way. We use very simple photos, just like some selfies inside the magazine, but we use good content coming from people. So we have like almost 100 or 120 pages in every issue.
Wow.
A lot of writers from Armenia, from outside Armenia, contribute articles to the magazine, and we just release it every month.
And what's the periodicity of this? Every month?
It's a monthly, yes.
Oh, you are doing huge work over there to have this. I know that. We are doing a monthly newsletter at Magnus. We are trying to provide information about HR and recruitment trends, but also we don't just copy paste from Google. We try to also bring here the local perspective and our experience, and it taken like a huge amount of time to work on that. So 120 pages.
Finding the topics, looking for people, interviewing people, putting it together. It's now a job. Like next year, Life in Armenia is going to be printed and available in Europe and the US. It's going to be exhibiting in different like expos around the world. So we are becoming like a fully standing business next year with a team, not just a personal passionate thing.
I'm very happy that you are expanding on this. This is pretty much all. I think I've covered all of my questions. Anything comes to your mind you'd like to share regarding this culture, remote work environment, integration, collaboration, communication?
I mean, I think we covered everything. I would just like to add one thing, that any company in Armenia or any HR professional in Armenia, when you find like that you have the time or the will, try to like spread the culture of remote work, specifically for the younger generation, because this is a lot of opportunity and it's being missed. Like a lot of opportunities are out there. Meanwhile, Armenia, I mean, now it's growing. The remote work like culture is growing in Armenia, but it's not as grown as it's supposed to be. Like I would just bring one example quickly. Nowadays, when you go to one of the most famous like marketplaces for like freelancers, you find there are 22,000 graphic designers. 22,000. And do you know how many of them are coming from Armenia?
Let me guess.
10.
Oh, I wanted to say around 50. Less than 10.
Less than 10. And they are passive, so they just created the accounts. They're not doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
Is it lack of graphic designers? No. It's lack of this culture of working remotely on these marketplaces, on these freelancing marketplaces, and getting these opportunities, because the competition is there. And there is the creativity. So why not join? Why not bring that money? This is US dollars that anyone can get.
Besides the professional perspective, I have tried myself in freelance. I have done both acting as a career agent, like starting from building CVs and ending with building serious HR programs for quite famous names in the market, because they were hiring freelancers to help them during these tense periods. And this is huge and fresh perspective. Not underestimating Armenia or any other country, but whenever you go out of your scope, of your country, of your location, you are getting lots of diversified knowledge on how to do things and expertise.
I go with my business partner. His name is Hago Panosian. We go to different regions and we have workshops on remote work there. And we just introduced the fact of remote work. What is it? How you can join it? How you can do things? And one time we went with like college students in one of the regions. We had around like 100 attendees. And I asked like, what's your ambitions? What's your dream? What do you want to do? And everyone said Yerevan, 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 Yerevan. And the one like who says something different was like Glendale. So what about
Not
working
staying
remotely
there,
from your own place? What about, and we introduced remote work, but at that moment, everyone was like, so what is this? Does it actually pay this much? So I asked Hago to share with them his platform from one of those marketplaces and show them his income, because that's public information. It's not something hidden. So he just logged in online and showed them that information, and everyone was surprised that you can actually make a decent living working online from any country and
staying at your home.
Exactly. And that was motivational, because we know we planted a seed. Someone in the future will just think about, when they graduate, for example, they will think about, why don't I try to do some remote work.
Yeah, actually, another issue that is that Yerevan is Armenia is very centralized around Yerevan. So I'm pretty sure it will change. Maybe we can invite you to have a webinar and use Magnus platform to share about this to YAF, and not only YAF, anyone interested. Okay, as we are going to publish this podcast during January 2025, what are your wishes for Armenian workforce for 2025?
On my personal perspective?
Yeah, sure.
I would love to see more foreigners coming to Armenia in 2025. That's even a mission for me, like with the magazine, with everything I'm doing. I would love to bring more remote workers from different countries to be working from Armenia, to experience the same thing I experienced in 2018. So that's my plan, my mission, my wishes, let's say, for 2025.
Quite
bring
ambitious.
More foreigners and have them relocate here to work remotely.
Because it's fresh outlook. because Armenia was that? What else? What are your reasons for this?
Oh, there's a lot of reasons. I have a book on it. It's called like My Life in Armenia.
Go
it's
read
a
the
full
book,
book about like why you should like relocate and work from here. But I would say if I would pick like the top, it's the balance between social conservatism and personal freedom. You live your life, but you respect everyone else, and everyone else respects you at a certain level, which is good and which is being missed nowadays in many, let's say, first world countries. And that's the reason a lot of people are considering relocating. So that I would say is the top reason.
Wow. Thank you. On behalf of all Armenians, I want to share my thank yous for the work you are doing. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your positivity. And I wish you are successful on your path to implement this ambitious goal. Thanks.